Today, I am happy to say that I am a single man with no children and with a great career as an electrician residential wireman. I am also an adjunct instructor for a local junior college here. I do well for myself and I am so glad I dodged this bullet. I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. I thought I struck gold when I met my ex, beautiful, smart and fun to be around. We officially met while I was on another date in June of 2021. Right when things were slowly opening up in my state after the pandemic. I wasn't laid off from my position, but after work during that time, there was nothing to do but go home and stay inside. We had rules set up in our office where only so many people could be in at once. We'd have to schedule when one of us was coming in to grab equipment. No more pairing up for jobs as far as commuting. Thus, riding solo, sometimes two different cities. I got pretty lonely. After going home one night, I decided to download Tinder. I initially just wanted someone to talk to, I swear. I never had any intentions on hooking up or anything. I really was just bored and was missing talking with people. I met a lot of women there and some of them were married. They'd say that they were separated from their husbands and some even said their husbands were okay with it. Sort of like the open relationship thing. I never spoke with those women for long periods. But my ex and another woman I spoke too often, to the point where I went out on a date with one and ironically, my ex was working at restaurant we went to. I had no idea she worked there as she told me that she was a caretaker, which she was, but apparently she was working as a waitress for some extra money then. She quit once we started dating, but it's still funny how this all played out. Anyway, while I'm on a date with another woman I was talking to while talking to my ex, all his friends trying to get to know each other, my ex, and I noticed each other when she was coming towards our table. She wasn't our waiter, but she was for the table behind us. We saw each other, smiled, said hey, and that was it. Later that night, my ex texted me and said she was cute but I look much better. Not going to lie, she was telling the truth. After that incident, my now ex, her text messages and calls became more frequent. Before, she would be so timey with texting, meaning we'd be consistently texting for a week, then she'd disappear for a week. But after that night, she was hitting me up every day just to make sure I was not talking to anyone else. We ended up dating for about 7 months before we both decided to be exclusive. We clicked very well. I was pleasantly surprised because I never intended on getting serious with someone from Tinder. Anyway, we did, and in October of 2022, I proposed to her. Stupidly, I thought she was worth it. Our families loved each other. She wanted kids and a family like myself. We both had our own leases apartments and the plan was to move in together once our leases were up. Mine August and hers October in 2023. She made sure to tell me over and over again that I am not to have any dancers at my bachelor party. She said this to my brother as well, who was my best man, and he'd laugh and say, "Okay, sure, you got it." I knew what that meant, but after talking to my brother, I told him not to. I did that for her. So at my bachelor party, there were no dancers. We had a Madden tournament, ate junk food and drank alcohol. She was not to have any dancers as well. She told me she wouldn't because she thinks it's disgusting, and her maid of honor said there 100% will not be any dancers. I truly believe all they did was watch a movie and drank wine. That's exactly what my ex told me happened after I asked her if she enjoyed her party when we spoke that night. Little did I know the woman I was about to marry did the nasty with multiple dancers that night in her apartment screaming "Woyolo." I saw the video and it hurt my soul. To even think I got it in with this woman all after some big buff guys had their way with her is so freaking disgusting. And she did not even use protection with any of those guys. I saw the whole darn thing. So we got married in March of this year and everyone was happy and had a great time. We headed for our flight the next morning to Puerto Rico for our honeymoon. We were to spend a week out there, but I didn't make it past one night after what I discovered about my ex. That night we were drinking heavily and started doing what newlyweds do. Afterwards, she got a call from her sister and asked if she could send a particular wedding video that the sister took on my ex's phone. My ex was going through her gallery and she giggled and said, "One night to remember." I heard her and I could see clearly because she was laying right below me in the bed in between my legs. She thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. So I saw a large Johnson behind the play button of her phone. She had some video of some huge guy in there. I didn't say anything and she scrolled back up and sent the video her sister was asking for. I pretended I didn't see anything and acted like I was still asleep. My plan was to go through her phone to see what that was about. Yes, it could have been just some p-hub stuff she had in there, but I had a gut feeling it was something I needed to see. Now I've always known her passcode because she gave it to me before when I needed to do something on her phone, and luckily she never changed it. I stayed up until 3 a.m. that night. Already exhausted, but I needed to get into that phone. She was knocked out cold, and I went for the phone, and sure enough it was the same passcode. I went straight into her gallery and looked at her videos. The date of her bachelorette parties was filled with events that went down at the party. I took the phone outside to the balcony and shut the door, and I started watching. Johnson swinging, kissing, slapping, everything. My wife not only was giving blows to guys, but in multiple videos these dancers were having their way with her, along with other women, and the ladies are just cheering it on. My ex was screaming out YOLO and doing all kinds of disgusting things. I wanted to puke. I tossed the phone on the bed. She was still asleep. I grabbed my things and I left. I still had some hair soap and things like that in the bathroom, but I didn't care. I just got my clothes, phone, and I left. I paid a reschedule fee to get the returning flight that day. The flight was not until noon, so I sat at the airport just thinking about how disgusting I was. My only thoughts were to get checked for diseases and divorce her. She texted me asking if I was grabbing breakfast or something around 10 a.m. I texted her back with, "You are disgusting. I saw the video of you at your bachelorette party. What were you thinking? You cheated on me with 3 different guys, then came home and slept with me. What the F is wrong with you? We are getting a divorce. I can't believe I married you." She replied that that was not her in the videos doing that stuff. This gaslighting ticked me off. I clearly saw my ex sucking and taking it from a group of guys. I said, "F you. I saw the videos. We are done. I'm going home." She responded with, "Babe, I'm sorry. It's not my fault. They must have put something in my drink because I don't remember doing that. Why would I record this?" Now I'm not gonna lie, when I read that text I wanted to believe it. Maybe they did take advantage of her. Oh my gosh, that's possible. Then I remembered when she said, "What a night to remember," with the giggle. I told her I'm not stupid, and the fact that she tried to lie to me knowing I'm telling the truth ticks me off the more. Told her we are done. When I got back home, the first thing was to get tested. I didn't even schedule with my primary care. I went to urgent care and again followed up with my main doctor. I was clean. Thank God. I was so worried. By the way, I'm just now getting divorced. As I'm writing this, it's August 1st. Now I'm finally divorced. Took 4 months to get her out of my life. I have to tell you what transpired during that whole time, and it was a freaking roller coaster. In April, she was served at her place. That same day, she showed up at my place and assaulted me. She spat in my face, scratched my face while calling me the biggest piece of crap on earth, and that she was going to sue me for wasting her time. Yeah, she threatened to sue me for wasting her precious time and said I was going to jail after leaving her stranded like that. I don't know how she managed to get home. My guess is that she bought another flight. So I called the police after that scratch. She indeed was arrested. Not only for assaulting me, but resisting arrest and assaulting an officer. She spat at the officer and it landed on his shirt. This was why the divorce took so long. Could have been over quicker. The divorce was held up because of her hearings, and all of which she was dealing with regarding the assault. Once she was sentenced, I was able to get the divorce finalized, and she signed what she needed to with no issue. She is currently serving 8 months in jail. She was facing 2 to 5 years. Talk about karma. You lied to me, cheated on me at your bachelorette party, threatened to sue me after I filed for divorce, assaulted me. Now look at you behind bars. Sweet karma. I love it. My whole thought when I left her in Puerto Rico was to get the marriage annulled. According to several lawyers I spoke with, including the woman I hired, cheating is not grounds for an annulment. She would have had to commit some type of fraud or lies about her identity and some other stuff that was said. I just wanted out as quickly as possible. But she went to jail with several charges pinned on her. I've had my apartment door kicked in by her family members. My tires have been flattened and passenger door kicked in. The cousin who kicked in my apartment door, I believe, kicked in my car door as well. He is nowhere to be found, but I have filed a police report. Man, I was scared for my life. I don't own a firearm. My brother is currently helping me get one now. I never ever intended on owning a weapon, but after that night I wanted one. I'm taking classes as I've never touched or seen a firearm in real life. Her cousin has a warrant out for his arrest and is already a convicted felon. He didn't hit me, but he got in my face and grabbed me by the collar. Are you familiar with the wrestler Amos? He's Nigerian. Not her actual cousin, but looks and built exactly like him. The dude is huge. If he wasn't a criminal, he could have easily been a professional athlete. Her parents have threatened me. It's been a disaster. I just wish this crap will all go away. This woman's family is crazy. Yes, I'm ecstatic that her butt is in jail, but I'm still dealing with the consequences of marrying a whore. Guys, it just isn't worth it. Don't be like me. I'm currently in talks with a cousin about moving to Oregon. My lease is up at the end of August. I've already told the office here that I will not be renewing. It's either go stay with my family until I find something else or move to Oregon. At least for a year or two. My cousin is also in the same line of work as me and can at least get me a job with his company as a wireman. I enjoy teaching too, so if I do leave, I'll see about picking up another adjunct job as well. But young men, take my story and learn from it, please. I divorced the woman and now look, I'm still dealing with this crap. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, I'll see you again. I was going to post my story on Reddit, but after reading over some of the comments, Reddit is full of assholes. YouTube recommended one of Tony's videos, and it just so happened that the posted thanked Tony for allowing him to share his story. Now I am sharing mine. I have to honestly say, I didn't know nurses had this type of reputation. Well, my wife and I have been married for 6 years, and she is 28 and I am 29. We delayed having kids because she wanted to focus on a career as a nurse. After graduating college, she went and got her nursing degree. She landed a spot at the hospital working 12-hour shifts, about 3 to 4 days a week. Meanwhile, I was slowly taking over my dad's lawn business. My wife was a hustler. When she wasn't working at the hospital, she had a little side hustle of running errands for people. She advertised on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and she did pretty well at it. Between her nursing job and her side hustle, she was making about $80,000 per year after about the second year. But soon after, she had a burning desire to get out of nursing to run her errand business full-time. It was really taking off. Well, one week she had some vacation time from the hospital and she made the decision to do her side hustle for a week straight. That turned out to be a crazy experiment. She made more money that week than she made last month working at the hospital. So as time goes by, everything is going well. Bills are being paid with no issues. We get along, we travel a little bit more about our third year being married. I started to notice a slight shift in her behavior towards me. She started to talk down to me a little. I didn't understand it, but came to realize that maybe she was just stressed from her job at the hospital and her business. I didn't put too much thought into it, but one day she had an outburst. Don't know what set her off, but I cursed her out and told her to stop talking to me like that. We were at odds with each other for a few days after I really couldn't understand her behavior. I wasn't the type of man to stay mad at my wife if we got into an argument or some type of disagreement, but my wife was the opposite. Her communication skills with me, her husband was in the toilet, but everyone else amazing. And this was the start of our dead bedroom for the first 3 years. Our sex life was on point. I initiated, she was ready, and vice versa. But now I can't even get her to give me a kiss. Good night. Something we have always done. Well, one night I made plans to take her out to dinner. I sent a text like 3 hours before she was supposed to end their shift at the hospital, but she didn't respond. I called and it went to voicemail. About 3 hours later, she responds. And her response was, I am still working. That was it. No, I will text you later or I will call you later. Nothing. At this point, I was at my wit's end. I didn't know where to turn. So I called a good friend of mine and told him what was happening. He said, it sounded like she may be stressed a little or maybe even distracted. I asked him what he meant by distracted. He said, women don't all of a sudden, just out of the blue, stop interacting with their partner. Something is going on with her. Something or someone may have her stressed or distracted. So after that conversation, I really tried to talk to her. but it just seemed she didn't have the desire to talk to me no matter what I tried. Well, things came to a head when she was supposed to get off work at around 8 p.m. I reached out to her via text and I called her, but she didn't respond at about 2:47 in the morning. She comes strolling in drunk off her ass. I let her have it. Then I went back to bed. She slept in the other room, reeking of alcohol. The next morning, she comes strolling into our bedroom, apologizing, starts messing with me, and I give in and we were intimate. I thought to myself it was about time, but I still had this weird feeling in my gut that something was going on with her. Strangely enough, this behavior of hers continued for about a month. Then it shifted again, and I was done after that. I started paying closer attention to her. And the most surprising thing is her phone uses didn't increase more than it already had. I mean, she was talking to people from Facebook and Craigslist mostly, but I didn't see her on her phone late into the night. Whenever she put her phone on the nightstand, she usually didn't pick it back up until the next day. Fast forward a few days and she pulls the coming in late crap again. And she was drunk, but kept my cool this time. And then she tried to initiate sex. I turned her away. I went to work the next day and did some research on how I can track her movements. So I came up with the idea of using a GPS tracker so I can see what she is up to when she leaves work. Well, a few weeks after installing the GPS tracker, I found out what she was doing. She would leave work, then travel to a commercial building. It looked as if they had many offices and my wife had office space in this building. I thought, what the hell does she need office space for? Why is she keeping this from me? Anyway, she was cheating on me. That's why she was keeping it from me. Let me tell you how in the back of the building, there was a door and one window to each one of the offices. I saw a man go in her office from the back 4 different times. One time he came out of the office and they kissed. And that particular night I was dressed in black, wearing a hoodie. I got close enough to see there was a camera and a computer and I had a hard time seeing. Lo and behold, I squinted hard enough and could see she was doing OnlyFans. I was shocked. Never would have guessed she would do OnlyFans. She was putting her clothes back on. And when she moved away to the side, I took photos of her computer screen, but I wasn't going to say anything to her. Over the next few nights, I staked out the office again. This time, making sure to get pictures and video of this guy, walking into the back of her office and kissing her upon leaving. Well, I went to work one day after staking out her secret office. I showed my dad what I uncovered and told him I was filing for divorce. And I asked him not to say anything to anyone. My dad gave me 100% support and told me to do what was best for me. And I told him right then and there, divorce is the only option for me. Filing for divorce was probably the most emotionally charged thing I have ever done in my life, but it had to be done. Over a few weeks, I opened up a few bank accounts and started moving out of the house we were renting without telling my wife anything. At this point, I stopped following her. I didn't need to, I had what I needed. I went to see an attorney and told them to file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. I gave him the pictures I had of my wife kissing this guy at the back of her office. It's been a month since I uncovered her infidelity and her doing OnlyFans. I still haven't said anything. Kept on acting like a husband who still loved his wife, but I never slipped up and had sex with her. If I did, the courts could take that as forgiving her. I wasn't going to do that. I contacted the attorney and asked him if there was any way I and the process server can plan where I can meet him at the same time he is serving my wife the divorce papers. He indicated that it was possible. So I began keeping tabs on my phone daily to make sure I can meet the process server at the same time he is serving my wife. Well, about 3 weeks later, that day came. The process service sent me a text to let me know he was headed to the address. I gave the attorney, it was after 9 p.m. And that's what time she usually got to her so-called secret office. The commercial area was well lit. When he knocked on the door, my soon-to-be ex-wife came out. She took the envelope. When she did, she looked up and then I waved at her and blew her a kiss. The process server walked away, and my wife was just standing there in shock. I got in my car and left. She was still standing there. That night I went back to the house and got the rest of my things, man. She blew my phone up. I never returned any of her calls or text messages. It hurt so bad, but I have to try to not think about it. My dad and my friends on my support. And yes, I told them everything and they were in shock as well. On the day of the divorce hearing, my wife just sat there in tears. By this time, I had grown a little indifferent towards her. I didn't care anymore. I just wanted this to be over. She didn't try for anything. She made enough money to support herself. The judge granted the divorce on the basis of infidelity. And that was that. On my way out of the courtroom, my ex-wife was crying so uncontrollably. The bailiff asked her if she was okay. We ended up walking out of the courtroom damn near neck and neck. Then out of nowhere, she hugged me. She was still crying. I had to hold back my tears because I love this woman and she broke my heart. I hugged her back and then told her to take care of herself and walked away. I was living with my dad temporarily until I could afford a place on my own. I ended up going to therapy for a few months and that helped. Our lawn business is booming. We picked up a few new contracts and I am still healing from the divorce. It's been 2 months and my ex-wife sends me a text every single day. And in 2 months, I have not responded to either one of them. I would imagine I would need to change my number at some point. My ex-wife came by my dad's shop one day and dropped off a card. I wasn't there, but she asked my dad if he wouldn't mind giving it to me. I haven't opened it. It's still laying on my desk. My advice to anyone who is going through this: get some good support from friends and family. My name is Oliver, and this is a story I never thought I'd have to tell. My wife Lisa and I were what many considered the perfect couple. Married for 7 years, our lives were filled with love, laughter, and plans. We lived in a cozy house in the suburbs and everything seemed fine. The only thing that changed was when Lisa decided to join a local gym in pursuit of a healthier, more active life. I fully supported her. We were expecting that this choice would change our lives forever. For the first few months, everything was great. Lisa was happier and more energized, and I was proud of her achievements at the gym. Evenings were filled with conversations about her new friendships and what she learned in fitness classes. However, as time passed, I began to notice small changes that, at first, I could not identify. She started spending more time at the gym, justifying that there were extra classes or special training. Her workout clothes became more fashionable, and she began to pay more attention to her appearance before leaving the house. Sometimes she mentioned dinners with gym friends after practice, and although I believed her, an uncomfortable feeling began to settle in my chest. I tried to convince myself that it was just jealousy or insecurity on my part. After all, Lisa had never given me any reason to be suspicious, but over time, those early signs became impossible to ignore. She was on the phone longer, sometimes laughing at messages she didn't share with me. When asked about her days, she became evasive, giving vague answers. The intimacy between us began to wane, and I felt more and more like a stranger in my own home. The looks exchanged, the change in her habits, and the long phone conversations with people I'd never met began to weigh on my mind. The trust one had in Lisa began to falter, and the need to understand what was going on became an obsession. It was then that I made the decision to investigate further, to find out if my mind was playing tricks on me or if there really was something wrong. I trusted Lisa, but something in the back of my mind told me I needed to act. With distrust taking over me, I started to pay more attention to details. The different perfume on Lisa's neck, the new sparkle in her eyes, the smile that seemed to keep a secret. Every gesture, every word of hers came to be scrutinized. I decided I needed to know more about these gym friends. I tried to be casual when asking questions, but Lisa seemed elusive. There was one name in particular that came up frequently: Tom, a sparring partner she said was just a friend. But why then did her face light up so much when she spoke of him? Gradually, my suspicions turned into an open wound. I spent sleepless nights turning over in my mind every conversation, every look exchanged between them that I had witnessed. The puzzle pieces started to fall into place, but I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I started checking her cell phone when she wasn't around, looking for some clues. With each harmless message I read, I sighed with relief, but the restlessness did not leave me. My actions made me feel small and invasive, but I couldn't stop. The need to know the truth was like a flame consuming my insides. I decided to follow Lisa on one of her dinner nights with her friends. I parked at a safe distance and watched her walk into a restaurant. She was stunning, dressed in a way she hadn't worn with me in months. Tom was there, of course, beaming as he welcomed her. I watched them for hours, watching them laugh, touch each other lightly, exchange glances that went beyond friendship. I felt the ground open up under my feet. The suspicion had come true, but it still wasn't enough. I needed hard evidence, something irrefutable. The pain I felt was overwhelming, but the determination to discover the complete truth was even stronger. The investigation was just beginning, and what I was about to discover would be painful and full of surprises. The breakthrough didn't come all at once, but in parts, like a slow, painful symphony that played louder and louder. I was determined to uncover the truth, but each step seemed to drag me deeper into pain. I started by hiring a private detective, explaining my situation and what I suspected. He looked at me with those eyes already used to cases like mine, promising discretion and professionalism. The weeks that followed were a real torment. With each detective update, my heart sank a little deeper. Photos of Lisa and Tom together in different places, secrets shared, messages exchanged with words that weren't just friends. I got lost between reality and imagination, recreating in my mind the moments they had shared. The pain was almost physical, a dagger slicing through me, and the love I felt for Lisa began to be overshadowed by the betrayal. The detective got an audio of a conversation between them, where they spoke openly about their relationship and how much they were in love with each other. Her voice, so sweet and familiar, saying those words to another man was the final blow. I was devastated, but I still had to face the worst part, the confrontation. How could I talk to her about everything I discovered without completely breaking down? The revelation of Lisa's betrayal left an open wound in my soul. I was devastated, lost in a whirlwind of anger and sadness. But as the days passed, a new emotion began to rise within me, the need for justice, a cold and calculated revenge. Upon further research on Tom, I discovered that he was married. His wife, Sarah, appeared to be a loving and devoted woman, completely oblivious to her husband's treacherous character. I felt a twinge of sympathy for her, imagining the shock that awaited her. With newfound determination, I reached out to Sarah. Words were hard to come by, but I needed to tell her the truth. We arranged to meet at a cafe away from prying eyes where I could show the evidence. The look on Sarah's face when I told her was one of utter disbelief, followed by deep sadness. She looked at the photos and messages, each one like a stab in her heart. How could he do that? She muttered, tears streaming down her face. I trusted him. I loved him. Sarah, I know how you feel, I said, my voice filled with compassion. But we need to do something about it. We need to teach them a lesson. The flame of anger ignited in her eyes. She wiped away her tears and looked at me with determination. You're right, Oliver. They need to pay for what they've done. So we began to plan our revenge. Sarah and I became unlikely allies, bound together by a shared betrayal. We met regularly, exchanging information, working out a meticulous plan. We decided that revenge should be public, something that would humiliate Tom and Lisa and show the world their true nature. The perfect place for the confrontation would be the academy where it all began, a space filled with witnesses, including students, instructors, and administration. With evidence in hand, like photos and text messages, Sarah and I arrived at the gym at a busy time, determined to expose the betrayal. Adrenaline coursed through our veins, our hearts pounding with a mix of anger and nervousness. We walked into the gym and I spotted Tom and Lisa, laughing and talking as if nothing had happened. My blood boiled and I approached them with Sarah at my side. Tom, Lisa, I yelled, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. I have something to show everyone here. Their expressions quickly changed from surprise to horror as they realized what was happening. Tom tried to speak, but I cut him off by showing him the pictures and reading some of the text messages. This is the true face of Tom and Lisa, I exclaimed, a brazen and despicable betrayal. The entire academy felt silent, eyes wide, faces shocked. Tom advanced towards me, anger in his eyes. You had no right to do this here, he yelled, pushing me. I pushed him back and the situation quickly turned chaotic. Students and instructors were screaming, trying to separate us. Sarah was crying, while Lisa begged for everyone to stop. Academy security intervened, separating us. The manager appeared, demanding an explanation. Between sobs, Sarah told everyone about the betrayal with the evidence displayed for all to see. Tom turned pale, his reputation and image tarnished in front of everyone. Lisa felt humiliated too, her pleas for forgiveness ignored. "It's over, Tom." Sarah screamed, her tears of pain evident. "I'm gonna get a lawyer, our marriage is over." Tom and Lisa were kicked out of the academy, their names tarnished, their lives in pieces. Sarah and I left the place feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. The next day, as I was packing my bags, Lisa's crying and pleading sounds reached me. Lisa was begging, asking for a chance to explain, a chance to mend what was broken. "Oliver, please listen to me." Lisa sobbed, kneeling down in front of me, her eyes red and puffy. "I never meant to hurt you. I was confused, lost. I need you." I stopped, looking at the woman I once believed I loved with all my heart. The pain in her eyes was real, but the betrayal was a deep wound, something I didn't know I could heal. "Lisa, you destroyed everything," I said quietly with my voice shaky. "I saw the two of you together in our house on our couch. How do you expect me to forgive that?" Lisa grabbed my hands desperately. "I made a terrible mistake, but we can get through this, Oliver. We can rebuild, I'll do anything." I pulled my hands away, feeling a surge of sadness and anger. "You should have thought of that sooner," I replied with my voice hard. "I can't stay, I can't trust you again." With those words, I closed my suitcase and walked towards the door. Lisa fell to the floor, a scream of agony escaping her lips. "Oliver, please don't leave me," Lisa screamed. I stopped for a moment, looking back. The sight of Lisa defeated and desperate broke my heart, but I knew I had to be strong. I had to move on. "I'm so sorry, Lisa," I said with my voice breaking, "but that's over. That was my story. I found out my ex-wife cheated on me with a guy she met at the gym. What would you have done in my place? Would you also have confronted them in front of everyone? If you found out about your wife's cheating, would you forgive your wife?" I didn't forgive. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, I'll see you again. My spouse, age 41, and I, age 46, were married for 18 years until our sex life started to lose its spark. Our twins had grown up and were attending college, and I had hoped that once they moved out, our sex life would improve. However, although there was a brief uptick in activity, having sex in the same places around the house at the same times became monotonous. We found some advice online that suggested taking a vacation with friends without one spouse could help reignite passion and desire. Additionally, flirting with each other could also help create a longing for intimacy. Initially, I was doubtful about the idea of taking separate vacations, but I noticed how enthusiastic my wife was about it, which was rare in recent times. We started planning our individual trips accordingly. My wife and her friends chose Colorado as their destination, which included a visit to the town where she grew up. As far as I knew, her childhood memories there weren't particularly positive, so I was taken aback by her decision to go there without me. On the other hand, I opted to travel with my friends to Wyoming, since I had always wanted to explore Yellowstone National Park. Once we had purchased our tickets, I noticed that my wife began to spend a lot of time texting on her phone. Assuming that she was just coordinating with her friends and discussing their upcoming trip, I didn't want to disturb her. I texted my own friends in the meantime, but we didn't have much to talk about. At one point, I asked my wife for a copy of their itinerary, but her response was unexpected. She seemed caught off guard and mentioned that she needed to make some edits because the first draft had some date mix-ups. Eventually, she handed me a printed copy of the updated itinerary. The itinerary for my wife's vacation with her friends included a series of activities that I perceived as feminine, such as yoga, shopping, hiking, indulging in yogurt treats, and dining at restaurants. However, after 3 days of her 6-day vacation had passed, I found myself missing her a lot. Although I was enjoying myself, the thought of being away from her for 6 days suddenly felt too long. Additionally, my wife had stopped responding to my messages, which made me quite worried. I shared my concerns with my friends, who advised me to relax and make the most of my time in a new place. Despite trying to heed their advice, my wife's responses to my texts continued to be odd and unusual. My wife's responses to my messages seemed indifferent, as though she didn't care about what I had to say and was only responding out of obligation. This made me feel terrible, and I became increasingly worried. That evening, my wife's itinerary placed her and her friends at a restaurant 6 hours away from where my friends and I were located. Determined to surprise her, I began driving at 1 p.m., hoping to arrive by 7 p.m. When I finally reached the restaurant, I was met by my wife's friends, who appeared shocked to see me there. I asked them about my wife's whereabouts, but their response was devastating. She had left them to meet up with someone else. I felt crushed and collapsed onto a nearby chair, where they proceeded to reveal even more unsettling information to me. According to her friends, my wife had been on her phone until the morning when she left without waking anyone up. She had only sent them a message saying she wouldn't be back until late that day. When I asked her friends if she had mentioned anything else about who she was meeting or where she was going, one of them handed me a small slip of paper. She explained that my wife had given it to her for safety reasons in case she didn't return on time for their flight home. My wife had instructed her friend not to tell anyone, especially not me, about where she was going. The slip of paper contained an address. Since I had shown up unexpectedly and expressed my concern, my wife's friend was persuaded to tell me the truth about the slip of paper. I thanked her for the information and quickly went to my car. The friend, named Jade, caught up to me and asked if she could come along. I agreed, as I needed someone else to help balance out my panic. During the drive, Jade shared information about her family, hobbies, and work, which helped distract me. However, as we arrived at the address written on the slip of paper, my worry resurfaced. It was a house, and although there were no cars in the driveway at 8 p.m., I couldn't shake my unease. Then, just before 9 p.m., a car pulled into the driveway. As the driver's seat emptied, my wife emerged from the passenger side. I stepped out of the vehicle with Jade and Tao and called out, "Hey, honey." My wife jumped, turning towards me with a shocked expression. Her mouth hung agape as she demanded to know why I was there and why I was with Jade. I explained that she was there for emotional support, as I was unsure of what I might find. Turning to the unfamiliar man, I asked him who he was. He boldly declared himself to be my wife's lifelong friend and new lover. Enraged, I punched him in the face. My wife screamed and rushed to his defense. My wife yelled out that the man didn't know we were married. I retorted, asking whose fault that was. She confessed that she deliberately kept it from him. I pressed on, asking if this was all part of her plan from the beginning. She refused to answer and even had the audacity to tell me that I shouldn't have come. She then turned to Jade and accused her of being a snitch. I interjected, explaining that Jade only told me because she shared my concern for my wife's well-being. After all, I had driven 6 hours to find her. This trip was intended to rekindle our intimacy and give my wife an opportunity to miss me while reminiscing about our relationship. Instead, she used this time to meet up with a man from her past. I informed my wife that she was no longer welcome at our home and that our relationship was over. I had trusted her to be loyal and used this time to strengthen our bond, but instead she chose to destroy it. I was in disbelief. As I ranted, her audacious lover began to curse at Jade and me, demanding that we leave. He urged my wife to go inside. She made eye contact with me for a mere 4 seconds before apologizing and following him into the house. In just 4 seconds, my wife had made the decision to abandon our 18-year relationship, leaving me standing in another man's yard. I returned to the car with Jade and headed back to the restaurant. She expressed her regret for what had happened and offered to keep me company when I got home, to which I graciously accepted. Once she returned to her car, I embarked on the long drive home. I called my twin sons and close male friends to inform them of what had happened. They offered their unwavering sympathy and support during my time of need. In the following weeks, Jade visited me at least twice a week, offering her company and comfort during this difficult period. I was deeply grateful for Jade's unwavering support, just as much as I appreciated the continual check-ins from my sons and friends, whether over the phone or in person. My sons made it clear that they could never see their mother in the same light again. Though they maintained contact with her over the phone, they focused on their studies and didn't feel obligated to change their lives to help her in any way. One of my wife's mutual friends revealed to Jade that her latest partner had broken up with her after just 4 months, citing her clinginess as the reason. It must have been a painful experience for her, given that she had been married for 18 years. It's understandable that she would become clingy to him. It's possible that she sought emotional reassurance that she had made the right decision, which unfortunately only drove him away. I couldn't help but wonder what her future held, although I didn't put much effort into finding out. It wasn't until a year later when I decided to check my old email address and discovered that my wife had been sending me emails during that entire time. The content of her messages varied from being extremely angry with me to displaying complete desperation for my response and love. To be honest, I felt a sense of relief that I didn't come across those emails until a year later, as by then I had already started a romantic relationship with Jade and wasn't tempted to reconcile with my wife after her betrayal. I hope my story serves as a reminder to people not to cheat, and for those who have experienced betrayal to know that it's okay to feel hurt, but it's not the end of the world. Life goes on, and there is hope for a brighter future. Despite the upheaval in my wife's life, she was presented with an opportunity to transform herself into a better person. It's truly remarkable, and I'm deeply moved by her resilience. I empathize with you, OP, and I'm sorry that you had to endure the painful experience of being betrayed by your partner of many years. You stepped out of your comfort zone in an effort to improve your marriage, but unfortunately your wife made a selfish choice by meeting another man. I'm sorry that she didn't recognize the value and importance of reigniting the spark in your long-standing and successful marriage. The woman made a heartbreaking decision to abandon the man she had spent 18 years with and who was the father of her children, all for a fleeting romance that lasted just 4 months. It's a cautionary tale for everyone. Please do not make the same mistake. Perhaps she shared with AP her story of feeling unfulfilled in her sex life and mentioned that she would be in town for a few days. To AP, it might have seemed like an opportunity to have sex without any commitment. We can only speculate on what promises he made, but it appears that as soon as she left her long-term partner for him, he proved to be incapable of providing her with the stability she had grown accustomed to. The key takeaway from this situation is to avoid engaging in sexual activity with anyone who is not your long-term partner. Sex is meant to be a special expression of love and commitment, but when it occurs with the wrong person or at the wrong time, it can lead to trouble. Instead of seeking external sources of excitement, the best way to add some spark to your relationship with your long-term partner is through communication. Try exploring new ways to express your desires and fantasies in a sexy and unexpected way. Pay attention to what your partner enjoys and become selflessly dedicated to fulfilling their needs. By doing so, you may surprise yourselves and rekindle the passion in your relationship. If you're unsure of what to say, consider asking for clarification or let them know that you'd like to explore some new topics during your pillow talk. Thank you for sharing your story. Now, let me dive into the second story of the day. It revolves around a life-changing event that I experienced. It all began when I received a phone call during my workday. At the time, my wife was 27 years old and we had been married for 6 years. She had been searching for a job for a year, but had only been able to earn a small income through her Etsy store where she sold her handmade crafts. I never wanted to pressure or coerce my wife into taking a job she despised. She had already endured a difficult childhood, and my main priority was to encourage and provide her with a sense of security. Our relationship felt great to me, although she would sometimes become depressed, likely due to the painful memories of her past. I made an effort to check in with her daily and ask what was weighing on her mind. However, more often than not, she would remain silent. And on this specific day, while I was at work, I received a call from the police. The call was from the police department of the neighboring county, and I was perplexed when I received it. The officer informed me that they had no other option but to detain my wife that day. Naturally, I was in a state of panic and demanded to know what had happened. According to the officer, they had received multiple reports about a woman who had set a car on fire in a residential area. Initially, I couldn't believe that my wife would be capable of such an act, but the officer confirmed her identity and informed me that they had her vehicle in their possession. I was utterly shocked and bewildered by the news. I inquired whether my wife had provided any statement, offered a reason for her presence at the scene, or provided an explanation for her actions. However, the officer informed me that she had refused to cooperate and remained uncommunicative. I then asked if she was permitted to call me, but instead, the officer requested that I visit in person to talk to her. I agreed, and upon arriving, I was escorted to the interview room where my wife was waiting. When she saw me, her hardened and angry expression softened, and she appeared defeated. She covered her face with her hands, and I asked her to explain what had happened. I needed answers because I couldn't comprehend the situation. She whispered that she couldn't tell me. When she told me that she couldn't disclose the reason due to being recorded, I asked her why. She claimed that I wouldn't want to know the truth. I protested and assured her that I wanted to know everything. Moreover, it seemed that she had been caught red-handed, so an explanation was necessary. As she sat up, her face appeared red and distressed. She disclosed that she had set fire to her ex-partner's car in response to his infidelity. After digesting this information, I asked her when this had occurred and why she was seeking revenge now. Although she appeared hesitant to provide further information, as her husband and given the circumstances, she had limited options. After taking deep breaths and shedding tears, she revealed that her ex-partner had cheated on her the previous night. I was taken aback and asked for clarification. She then explained that she had been seeing him for a few months while I was at work. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. I was certain that the police would enjoy witnessing this drama unfold. I asked her to confirm that she had been seeing someone else, behind my back, and when she discovered that he had cheated on her, she decided to set his car on fire in broad daylight. Upon hearing this, she appeared shattered. I expressed my disappointment and shame in being her husband. My wife's lack of self-control and responsibility led her to reveal her own affair. I made it clear to her that our relationship was over and left the police station, where I received sympathetic glances from some of the officers. My wife was in a state of panic and could only make calls with permission from the police. The next person she called was her grandmother, who raised her. However, her grandmother initially thought it was a scam call and did not look into it any further for 3 weeks. Eventually, she was contacted and paid my wife's bail by taking out a loan. This was just the beginning of my wife's consequences. After her release from jail, she repeatedly tried to contact me. I received 15 calls from her in one day and eventually answered. She pleaded with me to hear her out and meet her for coffee, saying that our 6-year relationship deserved another chance after the ordeal she had been through. I couldn't bring myself to laugh. Instead, I told her that our relationship was over and that it had been dead for some time. I had only stayed in the relationship out of good faith that she would remain faithful to me and not betray my trust by sleeping with another man. Not only did she betray me by going behind my back, but she also resorted to criminal activity by setting his car on fire. She cried and sobbed into the phone as if it was her lifeline. I reminded her that it was her decision to deceive me and that the truth always has a way of coming out. I was fortunate that her foolish actions exposed her wrongdoing. I wished her luck in her future endeavors, but she begged me not to hang up. Despite her pleas, I ended the call. For months later, her aunt contacted me. She contacted me and requested permission to retrieve my ex's belongings using a truck. I agreed, and she informed me that my ex's grandmother had passed away and her house was in foreclosure. As a result, my ex was moving in with her, and I would finally be rid of her subpar belongings from my house. Although I wondered how my ex was coping with the situation, I refrained from asking as I had started seeing someone new and didn't want to give any false hope. I hope my experience serves as a lesson to everyone not to betray their partner by cheating. 2 things helped me cope with this challenging situation the most. The first was making a daily exercise routine a priority. Although I didn't feel like doing it initially, I pushed myself to exercise until I could feel the burn. This helped me release built-up anger, feel more energetic, and improve my outlook. Instead of feeling down, I felt positive and capable. The second thing I did was prioritize self-care by doing things I enjoyed. Most of the time, I listened to music and danced to uplift my mood. At other times, I engaged in activities such as reading, watching TV, drawing, playing music, or going for a walk to take care of myself. I am deeply sorry to hear about your experience. OP. It must have been incredibly shocking to discover that your wife had been unfaithful for months and was arrested for setting a car on fire. It's a painful reminder that sometimes spouses cannot control or anticipate their partner's actions. Despite feeling like you know someone well, they may be struggling with hidden pain and emotions that can manifest in unpredictable ways. If something like this happens to you, please do not blame yourself. You cannot possibly control or anticipate someone else's thoughts or actions. More importantly, their disregard for you and the consequences of their actions does not determine your self-worth. It simply means that they were dealing with unresolved pain and emotions that they did not know how to handle, leading to poor decision-making. As humans, we are all a combination of different faculties working together, and allowing something that is ultimately insignificant to influence how we treat others is a mistake that can have a significant impact. I wish you all the best in life. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened.